Mayor, would you pray for us, please?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here today in this great city to do your work. And as we make decisions tonight, please give us the guidance. Help us have the vision of the future of Fairview. Please help us come together and make decisions that are good for the majority of the community. And as we move forward, be with us in every step we make. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2 is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item 3, citizens' comments.
Madam Chair, Lady, we have no citizens' comments tonight.
Thank you.
Sure.
Item 4, approval of the minutes, 4.1, April 14, 2015, regular meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Number 5 is recommendations. We have none. Number 6, bonds. 6.1, discuss or take action on the reduction of Leverett Meadows subdivision, Phase 2, letter of credit to cover the roads, sidewalks, and storm drainage. Amount was $78,700 and reduced to $75,500 on January 13, 2015. Letter of credit expires October 31st, 2015. Mr. Humber?
Madam Chairman, we ask city engineer Douglas to go over his recommendation on the
Mr. Owen?
As stated in the agenda item, the last time we visited, or you visited this particular letter of credit was at your January 2015 meeting. Since then, based on a field observation today, there has been some installation of some sidewalk that has taken place since that January revision. And so my comments to you in my engineering report reflect the potential reduction in letter of credit based on that sidewalk installation.
Madam Chairman, I've got a question. When was the last time we reduced this bond? Frank, you know?
January.
January.
January 13th.
Yeah. We're reducing it from.
Yeah, the January meeting this year.
We were reducing it $5,000. Is that what it amounts to?
2,000. 2,000. 75 to the engineer's estimate, 73.
Oh, to the engineer's $2,000.
Less than 2,000.
So my question is, should we be coming back up here every time we have a $2,000 reduction? I mean, the cost of engineer going out, I'm just looking at the,
That is, I mean, you have a valid point.
I assume that's something we need to talk about at another time to make a decision on it rather than right now, because we can't call on them ahead of time, but,
Do we typically have any sort of threshold for it? to
not that I'm
revisit
aware
these?
of.
Or any
Anybody else can
guidelines?
tell me,
I'm not
but
familiar
we
with it.
don't, but I mean, it's a negative thing for every $2,000 to
I
come back
agree.
up here.
Completely.
And I can see, I can see approving that, but calling the letter of credit, going ahead and calling letter of credit for the date that's supposed to be on, May the 12th. Oh, not May the 12th, but the date that we're supposed to be calling this on,
October 31st.
October the 31st. I mean, it's a letter of credit, not a bond, is that right? Different, it's a different, if it's a different animal, as far as their cost goes compared to our cost.
What they got going on right here?
I don't know. Mr. Umber, what we got?
Well, we've got the wrong bond on that subdivision. Because Mr. McDonald was asking for is, hey, do you want to explain what you're asking for, maybe?
I got an estimate to pay the roads in Leverett Meadows. And I was wanting to get it approved to when they pave the roads, I could get that amount of money out of my bond to pay the paving company.
City Attorney?
I don't think you'd want to be reducing the bond until he gets them paid. If he's,
That's right.
if he,
As soon as we get it paid, I want to reduce it by that amount to
Then
pay,
you need-
to pay the paving company.
you need to come back at that
Are you
time.
looking for us to do a contingency? Contingent upon when you get it?
Yeah, that'd be fine. This is the way we did it last time when we did the first coat on it.
Wouldn't be any different than if you wait until you get finished, because if he goes and paves the roads and then comes back and asks that it be reduced, city engineer goes and looks at it, then you're gonna have a substantial probably reduction if he's got all the roads paved. But if he has the roads paved and then comes back on a contingency, he's still gonna have to go look at them, so you're not saving anything.
But you're talking about pulling the money out of the bond, right?
Right. I can't pave it unless I pull money out of this bond. After it's done.
Well, yeah, after it's done.
After it's
but-
done, we'll approve it,
Well, you,
or we'll.
They better
we'll-
consider it.
Consider it, let me put it like that.
Will, do you have, I know you've got your cost here, but do you have a breakdown of just what the asphalt is?
My estimate on the asphalt was $50,000, so I'm pretty proud of myself. The estimate that that the contractor has is 48,000, or excuse me, the developer has is $48,958. So I would have no objections to, after the asphalt is placed, and if it's placed in accordance with city standards, which I have no reason to think it wouldn't, we would inspect that to make sure it was, then I wouldn't have an issue with recommending a reduction in the letter of credit for that amount after that activity has taken place.
I wouldn't have any problem with that either, but I got a problem with it doing before. Because
Yeah,
then,
I'm not wanting it before.
okay, I appreciate that fact, because then if something was wrong, your money's gone.
Are they gonna make the repairs to the, binder before the
Yes.
topper?
Then they're gonna cut the entranceway, both roads.
Proper thing to do would be just defer this request until he comes back, and then he can put it back on the agenda, and won't have to.
Yeah, because you've got plenty of time, you got October, was the deadline on the letter there, but I know you don't want to move much faster than that.
Yeah, I'd like to do it next month.
Yeah, that's fine. I make a motion, we defer to the meeting next month.
Second.
So basically, this was put on just to discuss if this could be a
Yeah,
possibility.
because I don't want to get it done if I can't get the money to pay him.
Well, most of the time, we work off of what the city engineer says, and if it's done right, I don't think you'll have a problem with it from this
You
board.
wouldn't have a good reason for holding it after
Right.
it gets finished. I mean,
You gotta
that
just
would be,
cause.
that would be asinine. I mean,
You have to have just cause, am I right? First and second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second to defer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
He made the motion.
He did.
No, I didn't.
Who seconded it? Oh, he did, okay, I'm sorry.
Tony first and Wayne second. Number 7, old business, 7.1, discuss or take action on rezoning application with preliminary master development plan for property located on Cox Pike, map 43, parcel 30.01 and 31.00, 32.19 acres, from RS40 residential to R-PUD residential plan unit development with a base density of RS15, Denny Proctor and Welch owners. Mr. Butler, would you read the engineer's comments, please?
Yes, ma'am. First note on engineer's comments is important to note that the concept plan that is being submitted as part of the rezoning application does not include detailed engineering design for the proposed roads, drainage, or grading. All proposed roadways, drainage components, and grading will be required to meet all City of Fairview standards at the time those detailed plans are submitted for review. The detailed engineer design for the site may warrant the necessity to alter the layout of the concept plan in order for the site to be compliant with all technical design standards for the roadways, drainage, and grading. Note 2, a traffic study will be required to determine the impact the proposed development will have on the existing roads in the area. Improvements to the existing roads that are recommended in the traffic study will be required to be constructed by the developer/applicant. Note 3, it is recommended that the proposed driveway widths be a minimum of 20 foot wide. Note 4, please note that the layout of the submitted conceptual plan is wholly dependent on the applicant receiving TDEC approval for the proposed decentralized sanitary sewer treatment and disposal system. Note 5, it is recommended that septic tanks not be located in the public right-of-way as outlined in section 2A/II of the descriptive narrative provided with the rezoning request application. It is also important to note that it is proposed residential PUD or PUD rezoning and associated preliminary master development plan is approved by the BOC. The Planning Commission will have authority to review the final master development plan and require any and all changes to the final plan that ensures compliance with all other standards for development that were not considered when the preliminary plan was approved. That's all the notes.
Thank you.
I guess the question would be how we're going to remedy these problems that we've got from the engineer. Or how are you going to remedy the problem that we've been told about?
I'm sorry, are you asking me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Could you rephrase the question? I didn't hear it.
Well, you've got a copy of this, the engineer's report? Didn't give you one. This is a recommendation from the engineer on things that need to be done, and upon doing them for the approval.
Yeah, this is standard. This is a concept plan, so
Okay.
we have to, more important than anything else, get approval from Dixon Water and Sewer for the placement of their on-site system. And I've read through their 80 pages of regs, and I've allocated land in accordance with their demand for 5.5 acres of drip fields and a backup of 2.5 acres. But these are medium perk soils, and whether they will consider these soils adequate or whether we'll have to come up with some alternative formats is the primary issue I next have to address. And Mike Adams, who runs that authority, has assured me that once we have a concept approval that gives him the appropriate density, he'll look at this, which he has already reviewed. And I feel comfortable with the fact that he's stated he will be flexible to make this work in whatever way he can. So my overriding concern right now is to know that we have a concept plan that literally is just a concept plan, that the density of 93 lots is sufficient to what you yourselves as a board would envision, and that I can then accommodate Dixon Water and Sewer with on-site drip fields and treatment centers in line with their guided outlines, which is pretty much as I show it here. To put it in simple format, at Cox Pike, we have an elevation of 880 feet. At the southern end of this subdivision, we have an elevation of 815 feet. So we are dropping, and I've tried to design the roads in such a way that all these lots with tanks between the homes can be serviced from the road, and that all the gray water discharged from these homes without grinder pumps can be allowed to fall by gravity to a treatment center there at the southern end of the development. I've also thrown in a fence around that area, and I've thrown in some storage tanks so that we can reuse some of that gray water for landscaping objectives. And I show in that green overlay that I've aligned the drip fields with the actual drainage patterns of this tabletop development, so that the drip fields themselves will discharge water in the same way that rain will discharge from the site. And we'll have a detention facility there to make sure that silt is trapped on site. And all of it will follow the drainage patterns indicated by the blue lines to the east and west of the site.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I could interrupt. I think at this point, what we're looking at is a resubmitted application for his rezoning. He's now asking for RS-50, which I believe he was asked to do by the planning commission. Is that not correct?
Well, I don't think we really
Wasn't
could
asked-
ask him
we
to do
didn't ask
that.
him to do anything.
We didn't ask him to do that.
Well, what I'm
It was
saying-
discussed that it was more favorable than a,
He's done that.
one,
He's done that, he's resubmitted it. But what he submitted with it is a new preliminary master plan, development plan, which is not his subdivision plan, it's not his PUD plan. I think as Mr. Owen pointed out. Is this, my question, is this enough information for you to make a recommendation now on his rezoning?
PUD zoning is, this becomes part of his zoning.
Well, what I'm saying though, what I'm saying to him is that he's not, well, we have to have a complete master plan then, I guess, before you could recommend PUD zoning, because I thought what we wanted to do was get his rezoning to RS-15. Is that not correct?
As it was.
If he made a PUD, he's got to bring a complete master development plan, is that not right, Will? To do it.
Yeah, because doing a PUD's got a whole list of,
May I interject what I thought was taking place?
Just 1 second. Let Will answer the question, and then we'll get back to you, okay?
and Madam Chair Lady, I will recuse myself from voting on this, but I'll take part in the discussion.
So noted.
My understanding is the item that has been applied for is a rezoning to a residential planned unit development with an RS-15 base density. An RS-15 zone is not allowed in your zoning ordinance as a standalone zone, as a freestanding district. It has to have an RPUD overlay on top of it. So my understanding is what's before you is the request to rezone, just as stated in the agenda item, which is accompanied by the the preliminary master development plan, which shows the lot layout and the streets and the open space, and as Mr. Smythe stated, the sanitary sewer provisions conceptually, along with the narrative description of the requirements that are found in your zoning ordinance for a planned unit development and the information required for an RPUD request. So yes, again, as I understand it, this is a request to rezone to a RPUD with an RS-15 density, base density, which would allow for the 93 lots based on a 2.9 lots per acre for the 32 acres. Does that answer your question?
well, what he has presented, does that meet the requirements of rezoning a PUD? You said there was a whole list of things.
He has provided a response to all the bulleted items requesting information for the proposed development. It's up to you to decide if that response is adequate as far as its depth or description of those items at this stage. I can tell you my engineering report, if you choose to move forward, I would not have any caveat or any reservations about moving forward, subject to the final master development plan taking into account my comments in my engineering report.
Number 7, I believe it was.
Correct. Now, that's from a technical engineering standpoint. As far as the density and the lot sizes, that's on the planning side, and I'll let you guys discuss that on if that suits your needs or suits the land use plan for this area.
May I clarify a point? Because this was a misunderstanding once before.
Sure.
We're not changing permanently the zoning on this land. If I walked away tomorrow after you approved this, your approval would die. The land would remain RS40.
I don't think it works that way.
That's correct, if it's only the planning commission's approval. If it goes to the
Board of,
BOC,
after it goes to the Board of Commissioners, then it, right, it would have to be changed back.
I'm not sure about that. Can somebody give clarification? Because
Yes, your action in a rezoning capacity is just an advisory board. So your action tonight, if you so choose to move one way or the other, is just a recommendation
To the Board of
for
Commissioners.
a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners or a negative recommendation for this specific request. And then they would take it up from there and move forward with a first reading, a public hearing, and then a second and final reading.
Mr. Cantrell?
Yeah, this board can't rezone anything, nor can it annex anything. But what I would suggest that you do, if you decide to go forward to this, is make it subject to the comments in Mr. Will's engineering report, and have exclusively on there that your recommendation is that no building permits issued for this until he comes back in with his final. Because his final plat in a PUD will be the zoning for that particular project. And it would come back in, and then the board, even if this was RS-15, if he wanted to change it to a PUD, he's not gonna be able to do it until he gets a plan, because you put that on your requirements. And then if he got it, say, well, you approved RS-15, if he wants to do a PUD, he's gonna have a final plan, and that final plan will actually become the zoning. Then if he wants to change that PUD, he'll have to come back again and change that zone, because anything you change is gonna be an amendment, and that can only be approved by the board.
is this a common practice to go about? It seems like we keep coming about trying to give like some kind of unsaid approval, and it's kind of doing it backwards. Like typically somebody would come in with all the information and then move forward. And I feel like we keep going backwards, which I hate to keep making them come back, but I just don't understand.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No.
If I understand what he's saying is, he can't come back with a final until he gets Water Authority of Dixon to tell him what he can do.
Right.
So if we won't let him go with this saying, okay, here's what you're doing, this is a conceptual plat. Now, what can I do with this? He can't come back with a final plan because he can't ever get there.
There's a semantic issue here. I have done 4 subdivisions. They've all been in Williamson County. There is always a concept plan that tells the developer, hey, we like this, go ahead and spend your money. In this case, I can't really spend the money until you tell me you like what you see as a preliminary sketch of what I intend to do, and secondly, until Water and Sewer Authority in Dixon tells me, we like what you see, if you do this, X, Y, Z, we'll go along with it. then I end up spending $75,000 to $125,000 before I come back in. And then you see all the final drawings. But before a developer spends that kind of money, he needs some indication from the boards involved that, okay, we see where you're going, we agree with where you're going, let's see if we can get all the compliance standards met and agreed to. And then I start to spend the money.
Okay,
Well-
can you, go ahead.
The only problem, and I see exactly where you're wanting to go, but the problem is, on a PUD, the plat becomes part of the zoning. Now, so if we were asking, do you like our concept plan? Well, maybe they vote so, but maybe they don't want to vote for the rezoning. So it's almost two separate issues that we're discussing and looking at.
You know that a preliminary plan is a vested legal right to develop. And I don't think this technically becomes a fully approved PUD until the working drawings and the engineering drawings that are supplemental to that are filed and a preliminary plan is then approved. The concept is for the PUD, and I think all of that is subject to final work drawings and approvals lining up for a preliminary plat approval, which does give legally vested rights. I think they're synonymous. I think that's husband and wife all the way through the process.
So then the question might come to, do we want to change our overlay, and do we want an RS-15 PUD where it's located? And I see a couple issues with where it's located, and I know we're going to do a street study and all that, but it's already a very congested road, and there is some issues with where it is and the curves and people coming out. And so, you know, and then you think about, it's right now zoned at RS, is it 40? RS 40? So, you know, which can be an acre, 40,000 square feet. So, you know, I guess at some point, we need to talk about if that's what he's wanting us to do as a planning commission. Are we wanting to throw out, which I wasn't on here when we did the overlay, but at some point, some of the members of the board was. So, you know, is that something you're willing to change with so little information?
You talking about the
The
land use
PUD,
map?
yeah, over the land use. And that's gonna be, I guess, your own opinions, but that, as a board, I mean, that really comes down to it, is where, you know, we can do the motion where, you know, all these things have to be covered, and but are you, wanting to change the, land use overlay?
Mr. Humber?
Well, the overlay, the PUD, RS-15 is required to be a PUD, okay? All right, so he's submitting a PUD plan, all right? He's submitting a PUD plan that, well, he's asking for his property to be rezoned to RS-15 with PUD, right? So, are you ready to make a recommendation? The question is, are you ready to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners based on what he submitted? And in light, of course, of what Mr. Owen said. I mean, I think that's what the action you need to take tonight should be. Either, I guess what I'm saying, I'm not saying you have to take action, because obviously one option, right, Larry, is that you don't have to take action at all. You don't have to send a recommendation at all. But I think what I'm just getting at is that when he first brought this in, there was discussion about what you wanted to see, and it's centered around the density, okay? And he's come back with a different density.
he'll have to have, he can't just have RS-15 and build on this. He has to have a PUD because he's gonna have smaller lots. He has to have that. Right? You agree with that? Will? Okay. But you see what I'm saying? It's gonna be a PUD, so if you wanna send it forward, if you feel like you have enough information, it'll be a PUD, RS-15 with a PUD for this number of lots on this property. And it'll be based on the information he submitted. It'll be these, 50 by 100 lots, 50 by 100 foot lots. So that'll be what you would be recommending. Now, as far as the sewer goes, he said he's doing a decentralized system. I don't know that there's a whole lot more we need to know about it at this point, do we? To send it forward for a PUD, the PUD doesn't require it to be an approved, not for, your preliminary approval on a PUD is what you're allowed to develop by. He's correct in that. But all of these things have to be done according to what the requirements are. You see what I'm saying? Everything has to be done according, he can do a decentralized system, but it's got to meet the requirements of the Water Authority and TDEC. I mean, regardless. But what I understood though, what I understood was you said, we don't want this kind of density at this location. So I think you need to I think it's time for you to consider it and either vote it up or vote it down. I mean, I don't want to be that, but because I feel like he's given us the information that we've requested. That's all I have.
Question. Cox Road is one of your main routes into town. And I'm working on the assumption that Fairview wants to attract homeowners in that 250,000, 2,000 square foot mid-range that is so critical to raising the development comps of the city and urbanizing the landscape. Cox Road is one of your main roads. It feeds right off Northwest and Dice Lampley. Builders own immediately across the street another 40 acres. And so if I develop this, and as intended, they develop that, we can widen Cox Road and even throw in, as I did here, a full traffic circle so that traffic slows down. But Cox Road is one of your main routes into town and out of town to Route 40.
Well, I mean, I do disagree with that. It's a side road. I mean, it does connect to, major highways, but it is a highly traveled road. You can go many back routes in the city of Fairview, but in the same sense, it's a curvy and sometimes narrow road.
Yeah.
And so I do see that if it moves forward, that will have to be a huge consideration because just the amount of homes that will be right there, because you are going to be across from another subdivision. And so it's just something that we'll have to, discuss as a planning commission, so.
I can tell you there is a traffic study being done. And I looked at the traffic counts going back 15 years, because that's done by TDOT. The traffic count is taken at Wayne Road, just south of where Northwest intersects with Cox Road. The traffic count today is averaging 1,900 to 2,200 cars, and back in 2000 through 2006, it averaged almost 3,000. So there's been a significant drop in traffic. I don't know why, but we'll get updated counts. And I think Cox Road does have to be widened, and I think the only way you can widen it is through developments to absorb the cost.
Engineering comment number 5, how do you feel about an alternate to that?
That's fine. I mean, I already agreed that we'd take them out of the public right-of-way. Remember, I said I'd place them between the homes?
Okay.
And we're not going to discharge directly into a blue line.
The other concern I would have is where is the creek? I know that you said on your report that you would do a drip field versus discharging in the creek. Is that what you were saying?
I'm sorry, a what?
A drip field
Well, that's
versus-
what's required. The regs for all these step systems, for every 100 homes, require a drip field of 5.5 acres with a reserve drip field of 2.5 acres. So think of them like large septic fields.
Yeah, I know, we went and toured in Murfreesboro. I'm very familiar with what you're talking, but originally you came forth and you were going to discharge in the creek as
And I'm
one
not
of your
going to do
options.
that. I'm not going to do
Okay,
that.
and that's what I'm asking. I see that you said in the description that you were going to do a field, so I'm asking, where is the creek? This conceptual plan,
The creek
Two.
was on adjoining property. In other
okay, so
words,
it's not on this.
I
piece
was
of property.
negotiating with the Tidwells who own the property to the south of this. They ultimately decided they didn't want to become part of this plat. The blue lines that you see to the east and to the west
Right.
are technically blue lines, but they're not free-running streams. The stream actually starts another 2,000 feet down and then travels along Dice Lampley where it comes out halfway down from the intersection with Cox. So these are drainage patterns that have blue line status because they are wet more than 7 months out of the year. The one that I am above on the east slope, see that whole green drip matrix is on the east side of the subdivision, and below it, you see that pond and that blue line, that is all underground. If you look at it, standing next to it, it's basically a declivity in the ground that looks like a wet weather conveyance, but it's got moss all over the top and bottom of it, which means you can see water in the moss beneath the ground. So technically, that's a blue line because the water is running beneath the ground. And all of the filtered water from the subdivision will ultimately go into that drainage pattern and then go down to the creek after it's filtered through.
Sorry.
To take it up to a RS 20, you'd be roughly working on about.
That'd be density of 2.2 instead of 2.9.
Right, roughly 60 homes.
I don't know, well, I guess so, because
That's-
32 acres, so
And,
70
well,
homes, let's say.
and pull your 5 acres out
Yeah.
that you need for the drip system. I'd be a lot more comfortable with RS 20 than I would on RS 15 in that area right there.
Well, one of the issues here is costs. In other words, there'll be costs to widening the road, there'll be costs to the sewer system, and that becomes a multiplication of lots. Remember, I originally asked for 125, so now we're down to 93.
Well, I've been working with Dixon Water Authority and TDEC and other people in there. We've looked at the cost efficiency of the system, and it's not efficient unless you have 50 homes. Once you get above 50 homes, it becomes very efficient for the drip system and cost.
Yeah,
Reality.
they want a minimum, I think, of 50 or 60 homes to make it work.
And it's, that's my thinking on it. I just think that's.
The problem
Go ahead.
I tried to address was, again, cost to create a lot that I can build a $250,000 home on. So, the shorter the frontage, the more lots, the lower the cost.
Absolutely. Mr. Dumber, you got something we need to wait for?
Madam Chairman, while she's getting that,
Just one across the street.
the minutes from last month, I believe Will stated that the supporting documents submitted with the original plan need to be amended, and he suggested those documents be amended before presenting back to the commission. And of course, that's part of the motion. So, Will, what is the status? You pretty well explained that in the recommendation, or is there something else that needs to be brought up?
As far as I'm concerned, this 3-page narrative is revised to reflect the plan that's before you. So I don't have any further issues with that. I think that's been accomplished by Mr. Smythe. But again, if you desire more detailed information on any of those individual items, that's certainly your prerogative at this stage. I just want you to be very clear in that there are some vested rights after this preliminary master plan approval that the developer would have. So anything that's ambiguous now or that you don't feel comfortable with, I would encourage you to make it very clear that you would like to invoke the privileges of my comment number 6 that says any specific items not discussed at the preliminary stage, you have the ability to revisit those items at the time that the final master development plan is submitted. So that's my only caution at this stage is, be very specific in what you, if you choose to move forward with a recommendation, be very specific as far as the density, the lot sizes, the general layout of the streets and lots, and then the general open space that's being provided. And if you can move forward in generic terms, I think that would satisfy Mr. Smythe to have some assurance that the direction he's going is worth pursuing, but also allow you some continued leverage and oversight for some of the specifics that will come before you in the detailed engineered master development plan. Does that make sense?
Mr. Dumber? Okay. Just to fill in a little bit, the subdivision we're talking about that's kind of across the street from us, Polson Place, it's an RS-20. Average cost of a home in there is somewhere around $250, $275, so close to what we're talking about right here on an RS-20. Unless somebody knows it's different, I think that's what it is.
I'd just like to point out that those homes had overhead electric. They were connected to an in-town sewer that no longer exists. And they were built out at a price point well above $250,000. The market has changed.
Something to consider. Thank you.
What, did you try to get sewer water and sewer through Dixon? Or did you just go in and request the sand filtration drip system?
Well, I'm following their recommendations. There's an 80-page list of compliance. I've met with Mike Adams 3 times.
Right.
He can't
I-
address this specifically until he knows that I have your approval to put 93 lots on the site.
Yeah, and my question is, did they turn you down?
Oh, no,
for
he said,
taps?
he said he's looking forward to it. This will
So
be
you
their.
like to do sand filtration systems, or did they turn you down? Did you submit for water and sewage, or did they?
No.
I
went
think
in-
what she's trying to say is, were there not enough taps available, which made the alternative this plan?
Yeah, I mean, that was made clear to me from,
Okay.
by
That-
everyone.
That was your question, right?
Yeah, you
Okay.
got it. I'm
Yeah.
Will, do you
sorry,
have-
it wasn't clear.
Will, you
No,
have the
that's-
setbacks
I just wanted to-
For all the zonings, the chart. I
They've
can
been
try to
very
pull it up on my
cooperative
phone
with
and I
me.
can-
They haven't been
some reason I couldn't
obstructionist
get
in
that.
any way.
Go from Horn Tavern slow.
The mayor was just wondering if there were taps available, which would make the cost.
No, there are none.
Okay.
They said no.
In fact,
Right.
he made it very clear he didn't want anything other than a step system. There are other formats for prepackaging water
As
treatment.
far as just straight taps. they're all
Well, I
right.
don't know, I mean, the step system, we've done a lot of homework, and I feel comfortable with them, especially since they were originally introduced. I mean, it's all in installation, if it's done right, which you're gonna have an engineer do. I do, you know, I was a little more leery of the discharge in the creek, and I made that known originally. But if you're gonna do the drip field, that's not my issue, as long as, when, those are things that we can address later on, as long as we don't have a drainage issue where it's gonna run off into
No,
creeks,
no.
then that would be another concern of mine. And with the information, you know, it's still left unsaid, but if we take Will's recommendation, I guess, you know, we would be covered in that situation.
All I'm looking for is density. I mean, I really think this layout conforms to the land in a maximum and best use way. When I do something, I'm proud of doing it right, and I'm very comfortable with this. And we're going to landscape those drip fields, so there'll be no surface runoff whatsoever.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the regulations for residential zoning. And on your conceptual plat here, it shows a typical lot of 50 by 100, which is technically a 5,000-foot lot. This shows the minimum width at the building line is 75 feet.
Yeah, we're not, the whole point was we're only going by the density. The lots don't conform, that's part of why it's a PUD. These are the same lots, in other words, as I represented, that Bent Creek utilized when in Nolansville, first went into their own jurisdictional authority and wanted to build up the density of their own jurisdiction. They wanted to bring in homeowners in the 200,000 range, and this is the size lots they used. They still have this size lot at Bent Creek. And there are builders like Celebration Homes and Goodall Homes building to this size lot in Bent Creek today.
I mean, it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just considering the area and the zoning.
Yeah, the lot doesn't conform. The only thing we conform to is the density.
Madam Chairman, I think, are we waiting, Frank, have you got something you want to come up with?
I thought that's what we were
I just want to make sure.
waiting on.
I was looking
Right, that's what I thought too.
Comments that was made and that.
It would have been March.
It's not really important. We see what we have, so. Unless there's some additional information from planning commission reports.
So the question would be to move forward with this plan with the condition of item number 6 and Will's request for engineering report.
Would you not
That's
include
what
all
I-
the engineering comments?
What?
Would we not include all the engineering comment
Why,
requirements?
absolutely.
Not just 6, in other words,
No,
but
no, but-
all 6.
That's a key for us to be able to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
Here's what I would encourage you to consider. I don't think note number 6 could be invoked for the density, the lot size, the setbacks, and the general layout of the subdivision. So if you choose to move forward tonight with what's in front of you, you need to be comfortable with those 4 items. Lot size, density, building setbacks, and the general layout of the streets and road and the lots. Because my interpretation would be, if you move forward with that, that has clearly enough been presented to you that that the developer would have some rights to move forward with a final master development plan that substantially complied with those 4 specific items. And therefore, I don't think you would have the authority to come back and request a change in those 4 items. Now, any of the ancillary stuff, I think you could invoke that review comment number 6 and address some of the more specifics at the master development plan, final master development plan stage. But I strongly encourage you that you need to be, if you choose to move forward, there needs to be some resolution to those 4 items tonight. And if you don't agree with those 4, or if you desire to require a different number in any of those 4, then you can certainly make that a condition of your approval to move forward. For instance, if you wanted to require side yard setbacks of, and I'm just throwing stuff out, of 20 feet. Obviously, with a 50-foot wide lot, that's not feasible, but that's just an example. Then you could make that a condition of your approval. So any of those 4 items you need to be comfortable with moving forward tonight. And I think that's due diligence for you as a body, and I think that's also fair to the developer, because it would not be fair to the applicant to try to come back at a later date and say, well, we only want 70 lots now, because then he's moved forward under the impression and under the preliminary approval of a certain number of lots. So that would be my directive or direction to you.
I think he's exactly right, and especially under the new vested rights statute, that once you approve those 4 things and he moves on that, he's relied on that to his detriment, even though that's your recommendation that would go to the board. I would suggest that the recommendation also have that page of the minutes after it's transcribed attached to it, so that when the Board of Commissioners gets it, because we've got 2 of them here, but the other 3 are not, they'll have a chance to read it before they come and know exactly what you're talking about.
All right. If we could, Madam Chairman, if we could just go, Will is absolutely right. If you'll let us, we'll go over the 4 items and just cover what he's presented. Then you can decide if that's acceptable. So the first is density, right? So he's asking for basically an RS-15 density of, it would be 2.9 units per acre, or 93 lots on the 93 acres. 32 acres, I'm sorry. All right, so that's the density. The next item is what?
Lot size.
All right, it's lot size. Okay, he stated in what he's given us that the lot sizes will be 5,000 square feet,
50 by 100, yes.
5,000 square feet. And then, what was the setback, the setbacks that he stated are, he's saying his lots will be 50 by 100, 5,000 square feet with 20-foot front setback, 15 rear setback, and 5-yard side setback. So, and based on the information we got the other day on this decentralized system, he needs more than 20 feet in the front yard. So, what do you remember, Mr. Hall, what we were talking about in that front setback?
30 feet. And that was.
30.
To be, because
30.
it's going to be service in the front.
Yeah.
It's actually, the way they had it,
That's the
Yeah.
reason the comment, that's the reason I asked about number 5. Because of the setback, that's why the septic tanks were in the right-of-way.
Well, and we, at Rutherford County, when we spoke with they recommended the requirement to the left or the back.
right, to the side yard.
There's room to put the septic tank in the side yards between the homes.
And you would share,
No,
No.
you can't share.
Cannot share.
I thought that's
No,
what
there's
was
no sharing.
discussed.
That's not possible.
It's all up to Dixon on how that's handled.
Well, no,
Well,
as
and
a standard of our board, you can't share
And I-
because the problems that come along with sharing is who, the electrical and, that, it would be a big problem.
And
And
I-
if we need to do, I'm sorry.
No. I wasn't recommending sharing. I was saying that what was discussed was
I think-
because of the 5 feet, sharing was discussed.
I don't think any mortgage company would approve a shared septic tank.
No.
So that would be something probably that would have to be added is that it would have to go to the side or the rear of the home.
Well, all of this is subject to Dixon Water's approving it, so I have to make adjustments to accommodate what they say has to be done.
It won't fit to the side. If he builds right on that envelope.
That's what I was trying to say.
I mean, I don't mind stating, look, what you see here are lots that are 50-foot wide that can easily be made 115-foot long. It's the 50-foot wide that controls my cost and my entrance. So I can make adjustments on the length of the lots very easily, but it's the width that I want to maintain. You see, by aligning them up on one road like that, I've left what previously was going to be an amenity center open as a fallback on drip areas. That's an extra 3 acres over there that I don't know what I'm going to do with until I'm done with water and sewer. I'd obviously like to keep it for some kind of preschool or amenity center, but all of that becomes a factor of costs and conditions subject to water and sewer.
Well, is there any requirement in our regs on PUDs as far as amenity centers or clubhouses or, because we discussed that last month on multifamily stuff.
Yes, Mr. Mangrum, there are. They're very complex when it comes to PUDs. I would encourage you at this stage to maybe just look at the size of the area that's being dedicated as open space and leave open for discussion how that open space is developed when you get to the final plan. You can certainly address wanting to see, basically it's divided, without looking it up specifically, I was reading it earlier today, but it's divided into, I think, 2 primary categories, basically passive open space and developed or active open space. Passive open space would be literally that, landscaped areas for viewing aesthetics, unmaintained natural walking trails, that sort of thing. Active or developed open space involves, on one extent, a full-blown amenity center with a pool and a clubhouse and that sort of thing, playgrounds, pavilions, picnic tables, developed open space in that regard. The area that's been dedicated does meet the percentage threshold for the area that is supposed to be dedicated to open space. So that's why I would, my thought would be just to move forward with that space being delineated at this stage, with the understanding that you get into specifics of how that space would be utilized or developed when you get to the final master plan. But by all means, if you want to add that as a fifth item, to nail down tonight, you certainly have that right to do that if you choose to want to go that direction.
So wouldn't that be a seventh item after 6? Or are you saying 6 is not?
He was just talking about the 4 he talked about a few minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
The specifics of the open space, you could invoke that, and this is the most I've ever used the word invoke. So.
That's not something we have to decide tonight.
You could fall under that umbrella of that number 6 statement to address more specifically when more information is brought to you in the final plan.
Okay.
I think what we need to decide is if we can handle the lot size and density, because I think that's where we're all stuck. And is that, that's right. I think, that's what we need to decide, because that's, I can't make a motion.
You can.
I'll make a motion to move forward for discussion, the lot size of the R-15. That's a motion for discussion. Make a motion to move forward with the plan, with it designed as we just set out with the 5. Maybe you help me out here if I'm wrong on this, or on the 5 recommendations of the board, that they be satisfied. And we're going to have to include that in discussion and amend it.
Yeah, you'd want to include all 6 of those plus your 5 items that Will just outlined a minute ago, one of them being the lot size.
That would be my motion.
I need some clarification on that.
Well, in order for it to move forward at all, we're going to have a discussion on it. At some point on it, the discussion would be to move forward with the approval of this, with the amendments, as we stated, with the 5 recommendations, considerations that we're going to put forward in discussion, approve or not approve your discussion, and the item number 6, the 1 through 6 that you talked about. Yeah.
I'll second your motion for discussion, and then, but to make sure it's really clear, it will be approved for the RS-15 with the 6 recommendations from the engineer, and then the 5 points discussed with clarification that the open space can be reviewed when a final plan or comes through and discussed. Did we get all the points? That's what I was trying to make sure. If not, you can refer back to Will's.
Are you talking about density, lot size, building setbacks?
That's,
Layout of the streets, is that what you're talking about?
Those 5?
Density, lot size, setbacks, and general layout of streets and lots for the items. Also had a mention of attaching the minutes along with the permits being issued until the final plat map.
Any further discussion?
And I'll include that in the, Tony's motion. Do you want to improve that in your motion? Include it?
I just want to make sure that we're just moving forward with the discussion reasons on those items. We can
Okay.
take those items one at a time and get an opinion from the board to move forward or not move forward with that particular one. And Larry, is that the right procedure?
Yeah, and I was just suggesting that they attach the minutes of this particular conversation about the 6 items plus the 5 items, so that when the Board of Commissioners gets it, they know what they're getting. We don't have to repeat that.
What's the first thing, if it's proper to move forward, now what's the first thing on the 1 of 5? Lot size.
I had density, but
Density,
You can do either, any order, any order.
That equates the same thing.
density, lot size,
lot size, setbacks, general
building.
layout of the streets.
Well, I think it's too, I'm not happy with the RS 15. I think I'd rather go with the RS 20 and be a lot more comfortable with the areas that we're gonna have and the density that's gonna be placed in there and the restrictions on the streets along with everything else. So that's my opinion. I think we need to ask if people, everybody about that and majority move forward. Claire? Well, I'll just ask the question, how many of us feel the same way about a RS 20 opposed to an RS 15 with these sizes that we're talking about? And we're talking about going down to about roughly 62, 63 lots compared to 93 that we're down at.
Well, I mean, I feel it's more fitting to the area, especially with the houses that are across the street. But you go down the road, and we have a subdivision with RS 15. So,
Most places RS 20.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I was talking Western Woods down the road is 15. But the concern that I come up with is just the location of where the road, the curves of the road. I worry about the, doing the RS 15 there. But I definitely like it much better than the original proposed plan.
10.
Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts on yay or nay?
I just wish we had told the guy earlier, we spent 2 months, 25 to 93, what we was asked to bring back, and he's done everything asked, and now we're coming back later and saying, well, now, okay, we're really not happy with that, let's just cut it back to 60 lots instead of 93, so.
Well,
That's the problem I have. We've already had this discussion 2 months ago.
Right, and I-
we came together and said, the 93 is not bad, but.
Well, my question is, it came back with a different plan.
Right, but
It's not something that we looked at. Yeah, I agree with you.
15, that's.
well, and,
He's basing his numbers on to try to do the development and be able to get these $225,000 to $250,000 homes in Fairview, which we need. I mean, that's our leading place in Williamson County, and I work in all of them. that you can find that number, and you've got to be able to do the math to make it worth somebody's while to invest in Fairview. I mean, it's almost a double-edged sword. You know, you want to widen the Cox Pike, this is one way to get it started. We've got, at the very end right here, Western Woods, we're fixing to do 40 or more lots on that next phase. It'll be, as soon as Mr. Cunningham gets finished with it, Old South will knock them out real quick. It's the same principle, just further down, with a different way to get out northwest or out the other way. We're coming 100 off of here, so my thoughts are, I mean, whatever we just say what we mean when we tell somebody, hey, bring something back, because some time and effort's been put into it by the guy, and whoever's his investors are, is it 93 lots, maybe suitable, just bring it back, let us take a look at it, so my opinion is, that's what he's done.
And I think that's fair, but the thing about it is, I mean, I think it's a fair comment, but anybody could have seconded that and made a motion, we'd be done a long time ago. I think I did raise some of these very same concerns the first time. The second time when it came back, it wasn't that there was no application and the proper information. So if anybody's cost time, it would probably be the, if the city staff didn't guide him right, or if he did not submit. So, I mean, I don't want to keep the man coming back if we have no intentions of doing it or not doing it. I am much happier with the RS-15. Now, Commissioner Sutton asked, or Vice Mayor Sutton asked, you know, my feeling of RS-15 and 20, and I gave that. So, I mean, it's more or less just trying to feel comfortable. But at any point, y'all can go to vote.
Can I ask, Larry, you correct me if this is not proper, that I make a motion that we move forward on the vote for it is as presented with the exceptions of what's in the minutes 1 through 5 and 1 through 6 be added to that for us to be able to come back. And I know what he said earlier about us being allowed, his anticipation of us giving permission to move forward.
You can go with the 1 through 6, plus I think you want to have the other 5 on there. The 5 things that you want to be able to discuss.
The motion will be items 1 through 6.
Items 1 through 6 in the engineering report, and then the 5 items that he wanted to
And the 5
discuss, the
items for
density
discussion
bubble.
we talked about.
Right.
That would be my motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Leaving it as a 15 and moving forward.
So if we approve for this to go forward, it just goes to the Board of Commissioners, and then you do it here tonight. You guys will look at that further and make the decision on it. We're approving or disapproving.
You're not rezoning it. You can't, we can't.
We're just making a
rezone
recommendation to the Board of Commissioners right now. That's,
it. So if the
and
board comes
it's
back and
their,
says, no,
it's
it's got
their
to be
decision on
RS-20,
the,
that's what it's got to be.
right, it's their decision on the zoning, final decision.
But, correct me if I'm wrong here, by doing that, we're effectively concurring that we agree with the density, the lot size, the setbacks, and the general layout. Is that correct?
Not if we add items 1 through 5.
If you recommend it, you're saying, you're recommending approval subject to these 1 through 6, 1 through 5.
We're not necessarily blessing those items by moving it forward.
Now, you're just including them in there for discussion.
Make sure that we were understanding that we're not saying, yes, the density's great, the lot size is great.
We're not by adding it into it.
No, you're just saying that you're sending it up there for them to discuss.
I recommend, though, if you do have concern, because as a Board of Commission or as a BOC member, I assume when it passes and it goes in front of the Board of Commissioners, that it does have the blessings of the Planning Commission. Now, sometimes I may ask, you know, or another commissioner might ask what the vote was, or was it, 2 to 3, or whatever the number. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, you can put on your sheet that's going forward
Yes.
what the vote was.
Yeah, you can.
And that way you can tell somebody disagreed over something.
Right.
Do I have a second?
Somebody seconded.
I didn't hear a second.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm moving it forward. No, the original, he's moved it again.
So when this comes before the BOC, then, again, I hate to keep beating this one together, but, so that, at what point is the density and the setback and all this stuff blessed? When you?
When it's approved by the
it goes
BOC.
to the BOC? But did I hear you say that y'all don't necessarily, you drill into that level? So I want this to get overlooked somewhere in the mix.
Well, I mean, typically, y'all make whatever, you can make whatever recommendations or add something or ask for something to be noted. But typically, we are going to assume that it has the blessings of the planning commission because, or at least the majority, because it came in front of us. Now, in rare occasions, somebody might have their own, thoughts or negative or ask, but most of the time, it's going to be that we're going to assume that y'all liked it. And
So effectively, that still comes right back on us. We move this forward.
Unless you send it forward with a recommendation disapprove. You can approve, you can disapprove, you can send it forward without a recommendation.
Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I didn't want to get into the discussion, but this same issues was addressed when Brownland Farms. I was also on the Planning Commission and also on the BOC at the time it was approved. These amendments that y'all are making, if it comes to the final, they are part of the plat. Those amendments will be part of the, am I right on that, Will?
If there are specific amendments required as a part of your recommendation, then the Board of Commissioners can choose to heed those recommendations and require that, or the Board of Commissioners can say, no, we're happy with the way it was originally submitted, let's go on.
We submitted 13 that night that we approved Brownland Farms, and they're still part of that PUD.
And just kind of a, for risk of interjecting, if you recall, I believe the March meeting, you had the initial submittal for a PUD with approximately 125 lots. At that stage, it was discussed that was, in your opinion, too many lots on 32 acres. And it was vaguely discussed that there would be a higher comfort level with an RS-15, certainly as it relates to versus 125 lots. Then the April meeting came, and the revised conceptual plan was submitted the Friday before your Tuesday Planning Commission, and I believe it certainly wasn't in your packets, and I believe it was handed out the night of the meeting. So that was played into a part of how we've gotten this thing covered over a period of 3 months. So that's kind of where we stand. I agree, Mr. Dowdy, we want to be as efficient as we can. And so that's why I think where we are tonight is where we are. And I would certainly wouldn't suggest any more deferment, but that's where we are. That's how we've gotten here. So.
I mean, there's no doubt there was some discussion about the 2.9 and the R-15. There was that discussion, like I said, he's not here, and I was part of it. I think it was all part of the discussion. And I think the biggest hurdle is, in essence, by looking at these lots, you really got RS5. Really don't have RS15, because you've only got a 5,000-foot lot. So, in my opinion, if he was saying, yeah, we discussed that and we led him in that direction, that's fine, but we don't have a 15,000-foot lot. So, I think that's where a lot of the holdup is.
Yeah, that's correct. You have the density is RS15. The density calculation is RS15. And so that's why you see the PUD designation overlay with a base density of RS15. But Mr. Mangram's right. The actual lot size is an RS5 lot size, or comparable to an RS5 lot size. So they are two separate issues, which is why they're two of the four specific items that I encouraged you to hash out tonight before moving forward. And that's a good point. The RS5 and RS8 zones, according to the zoning ordinance, are only allowed in the town center overlay district. So those options, from a density standpoint, aren't allowed anywhere outside the town center overlay district. The planned unit, the residential planned unit development, allows for the flexibility to maneuver lot sizes as small or large as they want. So really the driving force is the density. That's what, there's some limitations there. But the lot size, and that's part of the convenience of a planned unit development, a PUD overlay, is that there's some concessions made on the density and potentially the lot size, and in return, in theory, the community gets a known product that's being built based on all of these specific criteria. So it's a known, there are some known amenities on the planning stage of how and what that development's going to look like.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second on Tony's motion?
I'll second it to take it to a vote. I mean, obviously, I can't, if nobody's gonna second it, I mean, I don't want him to have to keep and not go to a vote. So, I mean,
Well, would you rather try to decide tonight if the R20 is what we feel comfortable with and not leading down any other roads and say, here's what we're comfortable with? Go back and say, we can afford to do the project or not? So we can go to Dixon and move forward.
yeah, and I understand that, and I respect that.
That's where I think that's our hangup right there, listening in.
Well, even when, like Mr. Mangrum, the point he just brought up, I mean, that really probably is it. I mean, I can't quite decide what I don't like about it. I just, there's just there's been so many unknown to it, and then just the question of whether or not that's the zoning we want to do there.
It said something earlier about you can extend the lots on the backside. Septic back in the back.
115,
Which would
Was that
increase the lot square footage size, so.
Well, and, I'm basing, and he's right, Dixon Water will determine where he puts the tank. But we did go visit with, a community that were experts in this system, and they, had said in their presentation that they require it in the side and the back, and so that would be something I would hope the Dixon Water would research. And I know there was issues of why it wasn't in the front. I just can't tell you right now.
Mayor,
Recall?
just a slight correction.
Okay.
The Consolidated Utility District of Rutherford County maintains, operates, and regulates 50 different systems in 50 different subdivisions in Rutherford County. And that was the field trip, if you will, that you were a part of.
Okay.
Their desire, or in their experience over the past 15 years of operating these systems, they strongly suggest that the tanks go either in the side yard or the front yard, not the backyard.
Not the back.
And the reason was because homeowners put up fences, there's dogs in the backyard, so access to those tanks can become very difficult if they need to be serviced if they're in the backyard.
Okay.
So the extension of the lots is certainly a feasible option, and all that would need to be required is, if this is what you choose, extend the lots to be deeper, push the front setback further back so that the tanks could have room to go in the front yards, as is the common practice with these systems, either the front or the side, if allowed. So that, just a slight correction.
Okay, no, but I know on the video, because I made a comment, and the group that was there said yes. So there was something, but one of the subdivisions we saw did have a front, but I would have to refer back to what the difference was between the two. But thank you for clarification. So.
May I interject one last? I'd like to remind you that these didn't just spring out of my head. These lots define the subdivision in Bent Creek that was created in Nolensville before the market crashed. They're designed so that I can build homes priced $225 to $250. I think the lot size is essential to creating that, and the trade-off is more open space for the residents than anyone is used to in the subdivisions that have been built heretofore. Before Nolensville went to Bent Creek, they were all half-acre lots too. I built homes in there. So everyone has trouble transiting to an urban design format, but this is a proven format. It will work. And I'll make whatever adjustments I need to make sure those tanks are located where they can be serviced.
Okay, I have a first and a second. All in favor? Opposed?
Okay.
Hey.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Dowdy?
Nay.
Hey.
Nay. Okay.
So, is the vote taken?
Yes, it was not approved.
Okay. Wish you a good day.
Madam Chairman, if I can ask, we've got James and Angela Stewart here, and they have their young son with them, and he's been here a pretty good while already. I think probably got school day tomorrow. Without objections of 8-1, 8-2, and 8-3, if there's somebody out there, can we move that up on the agenda just for?
If no one has a problem with that, that's fine with me. Okay, so we're going to hear 8.4.
Okay, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I need a point of clarification. Is this case now going to the BOC with a negative recommendation? Is that where it's going?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Got it. That's all I need.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is, number 8 is new business. We're going to start with 8.4. Discuss and/or take action on site plan for property located at 7100 Sleepy Hollow Road, map 69, parcel 56, James and Angel Stewart owners.
What we're requesting is a utility shed, storage facility to go behind the building, connected to the back of the building. It would be a full metal building, same color as the roof.
Move to approve, discussion.
Second.
Discussion, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Discussion on, this is an attachment to the original building that was approved prior to having a plan, a site plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, the only reason I'm trying to get it in that location is because the lot size is small, and I'm gonna have to have trucks in there turning around. And I'm just trying to keep that storage facility closest to the building as I can get it. If you want me to separate it, I can do that.
You intend on attaching it?
I'm just trying to keep it together. There won't be any access to the inside, it's just gonna be from the outside. I'm not gonna put a door going into it from the inside.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be seen from the road. What's the regulations?
It's gonna be on the back side of the building or the front side on Highway 100?
It's gonna be on the backside facing the mulch bins now.
And we changed the code just recently. Has that been all the way approved?
Sorry, the code on the. Required a site plan?
Yeah.
Yes, that's been approved.
So, I mean, they have to,
But he's, basically, you know, he's proposing a metal building. You know, we do have, the design review manual says 70%. What's exposed to what can be seen from the road, which I would assume would be, you know, 100, that it has to be 70% brick or rock.
Now, co-op's building is
I
what?
think it said 70%
Yeah.
on the view of the public, period, so it wouldn't make a difference, Sleepy Hollow or Highway
Yeah.
100.
Yeah.
Am I right about that?
Yeah, but, and,
Or west side?
right, but we did grant approval for a metal building for the co-op, if you recall, on their site plan. And they had theirs with a color comparable, or, you know, what they had was they had the color of their siding matching their building or something complementary.
what year was that?
That was, last year,
Oh, yeah, that was 14.
yeah, 14.
But there's, the metal on co-op building matches the metal on the existing co-op building.
Right.
Which it is metal, right?
Yes.
And as far as our building goes, you know, we're way beyond the 70% on that little 12 by 16 office that we have. I mean, everything is brick and stone except for the little point on the top.
Can you landscape it where it's not seen?
I've got 3 sides road.
I don't think we could do that.
I mean, I face Sleepy Hollow. I don't face 100 and I don't face West Side. I face Sleepy Hollow. So
Yeah.
putting it on the backside would be hiding it from the road that I face.
Is there no requirements? I mean, you know, the brick requirement is for the main building. Is there a requirement on
Yeah.
sheds?
I think since he's putting it next to it, you could consider it all as being, if you want, you know, if you wanted to, you could grant it as a variance because he does meet 70%, considering his entire, what fronts on, or what's seen from 100 would be the same as what's seen from Westview. So I mean, if he's putting it together, you could look at it that way, even though it is a separate building. But it's whatever you'd like to do. What he needs to do, what he's proposing here is what he'd like to do. And I think since to me, one of the main things is it be correct color so it doesn't stand out, it doesn't draw attention to itself, it doesn't become something that's not blended in. You know what I'm saying? That's what we did, I think, with the co-op, was basically let them continue what they had, but In this case, we have allowed people to put, I believe we have allowed a metal awning on our buildings. I mean, it's not that it can't be metal at all. We're not saying that, you understand? So, but whatever y'all think, he just needs to have his decision on what y'all feel like, because he's,
What about, is there any possibility without, with this limited information, is there any possibility you could put it on the side of the building facing Westview? And then it wouldn't necessarily be seen by those
good.
three sides of the road?
That would go into the driveway area on the
Okay.
side.
See, you're only theoretically gonna have two walls to shunt, right? Because the back of this touches your office, and then the whole back of this is open.
It's actually going to be a closed, we're going to have doors on it.
Okay, this says open front.
Well, I just,
So it's not going to be open front?
I think that was the original plan. It was two different people talking about that. My intention is to put garage doors on it. We're going to store concrete, and the Bobcat's going to be staged in there. What I'm trying to do is hide all the stuff from the main road. When somebody comes by, if I have that open, everybody's going to be able to see it. So if it's closed down, it would look a little bit neater from the street.
I think it would look better closed myself.
Oh, yeah. I do too.
We would like to stay with like browns and beige. We don't want to do white or anything.
Yeah, I just get hung up on the whole being seen from the road and the requirements, because there's been so many people that we have required to meet that. And we appreciate y'all breaking the building, because you do have a hard time when you require these businesses, and they were made to meet our code. And due to whatever
On a normal
misunderstanding,
On normal code, you're not allowed to have anything facing the road that you face, right?
right,
I mean, we're talking about two roads that I face on the side, but I face Sleepy Hollow.
yeah. Definitely an interesting lot.
Yeah.
Area. Gonna throw out all the,
Because our address is 7100 Sleepy Hollow, it's not 100.
And technically, this is behind their building. I
Yeah,
mean,
well-
it doesn't matter that, one side's 100 and one side's Westview and one side's Sleepy Hollow. Their address is Sleepy Hollow, the front of their building's Sleepy Hollow, this is behind their building.
yeah.
Any more discussion? We have first and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Madam Chair, should we go back to item number 8.1? Shouldn't move too far forward. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so we're returning to 8.1, discuss or take action on rezoning application for property located on Tiger Trail and Cox Pike, map 42, parcel 28.03, 15.2 acres, from RS 40 to RS 8, Benny Sullivan, owners.
Move to approve. Got a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay, I have a first and a second, any more discussion?
I got one thing, is, as Will spoke earlier, RS8 is designated for the city center overlay district only, according to Article 5 in our zoning ordinance. That's my only comment or concern. This is not in the city center.
So it would not be allowed.
According to our current regulations, no. Ordinances, no.
Will, you have any comments on that?
Madam Chairman, I think we need to let the applicant tell us what he gets to do. That may shed a lot of light on what some of the
Okay.
classification needs.
Yeah, basically what I'm trying to do, my name's Brandon Robertson. I'm purchasing the property, or trying to, from Mr. Sullivan. Essentially, the reason I asked for the RS8 is because the property layout is just, it's kind of quirky. Most of the lots, or actually all of the lots except for one, are 12,000 square feet. It's mainly the road frontage is what I'm trying to reduce, and that's why I requested the RS8. And also, I was under the impression, I thought the RS12 was only allowed in the a PUD zoning. I may be completely wrong about that, but so anyway, that's mainly what I was trying to do, is get the road frontage down to 65, so I could get the 35 lots in there approximately, so the numbers work out feasible. It'll be feasible to come in, and essentially what I'm trying to do is get house prices around the 200,000 price range, which I think Williamson County desperately needs. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from there.
What your lot size is gonna be?
They're about 12,000 square feet. I've got a layout here if you guys would like to see that.
I would.
I would too.
Okay.
Mr. Hall, you're the only person I could think that was here then. We did have a book for the City Center Overlay District. It was a fairly thick book. Is this little section that runs all the way up to Cox Pike, was that where they supposed Tiger Trail was supposed to tie it into Cox Pike? Is that idea abandoned?
That was the ideal scenario, was to take Tiger Trail to come out at the, where the school zone is now. That was the ideal. But it shifted to Lake Road. But back in those days, I personally wanted to go through Tiger Trail myself.
So we gotta go through this property to get to Lake Road? This-
No.
Yes.
And it's RS
10,000 square feet.
40, I missed that part.
The rest of them exceed.
40 to 8, but he's only asking for 8 because of the road frontage.
So,
Cut from T-Dot.
The lots are actually bigger.
no, they're using Tiger Trail, Westwood entrance. So,
As
Mr. Hall, in saying that, if that's
of
been
the-
moved there, do we need just a stub road going between lots 6, 7, or between 7 and 8 to?
I think if there were a possibility to access Tiger Trail all the way to Cox Pike, then it may be a consideration.
So you're looking at going through lot 10?
So you would have an entrance off of Cox Pike going through Lot 10, is that what?
Well,
That's not.
since I
that's-
brought this up, I'll shed light on this, because I was on the planning commission back when the city center overlay district and the land use map and all that come about. Once upon a time, the entrance to Western Woods, which is City Center Boulevard, was to tie in to Tiger Wood, or Tiger Trail, which takes you all the way to Westwood, or eventually all the way out to 96.
Right.
Of course, Westwood entrance got moved to line up with Lake Road. But what I asked Mr. Hall a second ago, because I knew he was the only person I could think of that was involved with that then, was that still the case, that Tiger Trail was supposed to come all the way to Cox Pike, and he informed me that that had sort of been abandoned and leaning towards tying into the Lake Road. Of course, I think, recalling back then, the theory of tying into Cox Pike was to relieve traffic coming onto 96 via Lake Road or 100 to get to Westwood.
And it actually probably was a good theory. Lake Road probably wasn't the ideal situation to connect. But this goes to that if it's abandoned, and I mean, as far as the overlay, it now is Lake Road and it was changed. Is that right, Mr. Hall? So you're going to come in off of 96, go through the school.
Yes, ma'am. Up Tiger Trail to the entrance.
But do you own property all the way up to Cox Pike?
Yeah, lot 10.
Yeah,
This-
that's,
Yeah, and that's what I was trying
Oh, yeah.
to, like this little road.
That would be so nice just to
Yeah.
continue that road on.
it's just, in order for me to continue that road, it's just a cost effective. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, no land or, no lots or anything. I mean, I'd be willing to, if the city, wants to do something with that road or eventually, then, we'd be willing to look at anything.
It won't be a thoroughfare. It's going to have to be.
Of course, I'm not sure what the school system, this Westwood, even though the city owns Tiger Trail, correct, Mr. Hall?
Actually, that's county road.
It's a county road.
Yes, ma'am.
My concern would be cut-through traffic from Cox Pike to 96. Not school traffic, that doesn't concern me.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I can envision a lot of people wanting to go that way. Other than, because you're talking, it's gonna be a much nicer road than Lake Road.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but they don't get you to interstate no quicker. Put speed bumps on there,
yeah.
because that alleviates a lot of traffic going either to 96 or 100 just to get to
Well,
that
that-
school. Because Cox Pike is, as you know, for Westwood School, that's one of the main streets that supplies children to Westwood School.
Well, and I would be concerned with speeders coming through because the way the road is done, it would be, the way the school is designed in the road, it would affect the travel of the campus.
Well, it's gonna be generating a school zone on that road, is what it's gonna amount to. A speed restriction zone on that road.
That's kind of why I wish it could go down Cox Pike and then the entrance and exit would be that way, just to keep it out of the school.
You said not come in there, but just bring it from
Yeah,
that
there,
side.
but then he loses a
Yeah.
house.
And Mr. Hall, since that is a county
I think he
road,
said he'd
if
be willing
we
to give that up
approve
if the city wanted to do something
this
with the road.
subdivision, do
He
we
just
end
can't
up
build the road.
adopting
It's
that
too
street?
expensive.
I may be wrong on it being a county road. I was gonna press
I
that
think
again
you're
in a
right.
minute. Because back there, you mentioned speed bumps, and that's what kind of refreshed my memory, because I was requested by the officer that takes care of y'all schools over there about, was it Lieutenant Ryan or Sergeant Ryan?
Well, it was,
Roger.
yeah, he'll,
But they wanted the speed bump over there. And after talking to Chief Harris, he said we'd have to get permission from
county.
the landowner there, which is Benny Sullivan on the right-hand side. And of course, he said he was trying to sell his property, and he was afraid a speed bump would hinder that sale. So that very well could be a city road rather than a county road, so.
Running
But I
into a
can
county
research
road.
that and find out for sure where it's at.
You said running into a county road.
No, he's saying it may be a
It's
city
running
road.
into a state road.
Yeah, the 100.
Okay, I didn't hear you right, I just wanted clarification. Will, did you have something you wanted to add?
Based on the two attachments to the rezoning application, the first being the colored aerial map, that I suspect, I take that to be a tax map. And then the second submittal, the 11 by 17, appears to be a boundary survey. my interpretation of both of those documents would indicate to me that Tiger Trail is neither a city street nor a county road. That Tiger Trail is just an access drive that is on the Williamson County Schools property, and is not within a public right-of-way. I don't know that to be fact. I'm just telling you
That's what I thought too,
that the
but
two
just
documents
me.
that are before us tonight would indicate to me that would be my first inclination. Obviously, that may need to be verified, but that's my first inclination.
Yeah, because by looking at that aerial, that yellow line is on the northern side of the
Correct.
Tiger Trail, so. There's not one on the southern side of Tiger Trail.
Well, and that may be true. I just know that the principals had mentioned one time about signage up at the road. And the reason that signs were allowed was something about when they inquired, it was a city street. Now, I don't know if it was that section, or what. We would just have to find that out. I have no idea if it's all off of somebody else's talking about it. So I don't know if they were.
Was the property for Westwood, was it part of this property at one time?
Sullivan's.
Did Vinnie own did he sell that to the county?
I don't know.
Not Mangum didn't. I'll tell you that right now. Okay.
But
Because
I've-
if Mr. Sullivan sold it to the county, he may have something that we don't know. He may have an agreement.
For some unknown reason, I remember an easement.
I would think.
Would that make sense?
So you're talking one or two houses then?
Yeah. And doesn't Charles Mangrum access this, beside this property? I think the easement was from
Say
him.
that again. I didn't hear you.
Doesn't Charles Mangrum access the side of this property?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And I think he had designated this an easement, I think.
It'd be on the Cox Pike side.
Yes.
So we really need to get some clarification on two things. Well, really, one thing is who owns Tiger Trail? Because we can't grant him permission.
to access.
To use Tiger Trail, we can't grant him that if we don't control that.
Yeah, but there is that house. I mean, it was the Sullivans owned
Right away,
it.
then you
Yeah.
can build one or two houses off of a right of way, but not,
Yeah.
not 37.
Okay.
Madam Chairperson, can I ask the
Yes.
city engineer a question? Will, do you know what the density is on Deer Valley Downs?
I do not. I might could find it on my phone real quick.
Okay. Y'all questioning the density of this is 8,000. Seemed like to me that that possibly may be already in the zoning because of cluster housing. It's either 8 or 10, and I'm not sure. So,
I know
Do
it
you
was, I know, Deer Valley Downs, it was a minimum of 8,000 square feet.
that's what I was thinking.
Remember, because he had some lots that were under that?
Yeah.
You made it adjusted.
I think that's right.
Is that a
But I don't know, it was a PUD.
Okay, so it is a PUD then?
It is.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
And I
get
don't know when
clarification.
that PUD went through. I suspect it was several years ago, but I'm not certain about
The
that.
preliminary was several years ago, and we finalized it last year. Or it might have been this year, may have been January or so.
But
But the front four lots were a lot bigger, I remember that.
the RS8 distinction does state in Town Center Overlay District, and it also states that it shall only be utilized in conjunction with the corresponding residential plan unit development overlay district. So, it's good to have a layout. And this is one of the nice things about a PUD is that it gives you, and it holds the developer or not necessarily accountable, but it defines what the project, how the project is going to be developed. But before you tonight is just a straight RS8 zone. So while it's nice to look at this proposed this proposed layout, if a rezoning strictly occurred to an RS8, there's nothing that says this has to be the layout. Once rezoned to a straight RS8 or any district without a planned development overlay on it,
Each lot could conform to the RSA.
each lot, that's right, each lot could conform to the RS8, and the layout could change, and it still have to meet your subregs, but it wouldn't necessarily have to meet anything that you saw tonight. So that, again, that's part of the trade-off of a PUD. You get, the developer gets a little bit more of a dense lot size, but in return, they provide and are held to a layout and a standard on the planning side of things, and not just allowed to move forward with a subdivision of any type in the future that would meet that RS8 size. So,
Well, can we require, or, you know, make a stipulation? Because you're basically saying they can come back, get an RS8, and then do smaller lots or whatever, and then,
well, if you choose to allow an RS8 outside the town center overlay district, then that's your decision. Then you could, you know, request that they come back. Basically, if you move forward tonight without any conditions of approval, then you would in essence be granting variances for allowing an RS8 outside the town center overlay district and allowing an RS8 without a planned unit overlay district. And as you know, that's a precedent, so be prepared for future requests along those lines.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does a PUD, isn't there a minimum acreage for a PUD?
Yes.
Is it 30 acres?
I don't believe it's that big. An RS8 PUD does not have a minimum acreage requirement. The RS15 PUD requires a minimum of 5 acres. The R20 PUD requires a minimum of 10 acres. RS40 and RSM40, 20 acres. AR58, 50 acres. AR15A, 100 acres. But there is not a minimum total area requirement for an RS8 or an RS5 PUD.
Okay.
well, I think one of the factors is versus another, is the size of the lot. Like where I could consider the RS8 if we could have the guarantee of the lot sizes. But I would sure hate to start doing stuff like this and then giving him free range, no offense, free range to, change it as it goes along. I think I would be more apt to approve with the stipulation if we can do that.
Well, and the danger of, no offense, approving something like this, if he were to sell it, then somebody could come in and change the whole thing, so.
So you're
that's the
saying that
danger.
you would be fine with this zoning and it's not in the city center?
Well,
Even though it's only designated for the city center?
well, I'm really comparing it in my head to other discussions and justifying the lot size. better with this layout. But that is something we have to decide, and I was trying to get to earlier, was we've got to decide if we're gonna allow, that. And I don't know, I don't really know how I feel, but I did like the sizes versus. What's some of the other boards' thought? Somebody could,
Well, I think Will made a good point in that, it's setting a precedent here. If we were to approve this RS8, then it's not in city center. Do we really want to go there? We put this in place for a reason, and this would completely go against that. And not only that, it's the issue with what's the deal with Tiger Trail? Who does own that road?
If we start that now,
Yeah.
then it's free reign. If it says city center only, it don't matter. It don't mean city center only.
yeah.
Yeah.
It just means the city of Fairview only, maybe.
Correct.
So, and there's other zonings that's for city center only, not just the RSA.
Anytime you grant a variance, you weaken your code,
Yeah.
because there's a reason for that being required where it is, and if you don't agree with that reason, then you need to recommend to the board, get the board to change the zoning. I mean, there are times when that needs to happen. If patterns and public thinking and planning thinking says this is not what you want, then you need to change your code. But when you start granting variances, I know sometimes they're necessary and they are granted, but anytime you do that, you're weakening your code.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to approve an RS8 that's not in the city center.
Not for that zone,
Right.
not for the RSA.
Right, correct.
Where is the town overlayment line? Where is that line, that boundary?
It's across the,
Other
it's
side of the street.
other side of Cox Pike.
Okay.
So the question, to me, the question is gonna be on the road frontage, are you gonna be able to sacrifice and have more road frontage so you can extend the size of those two lots, if that's what we're talking about, to conform with RS15 or 10 or whatever would be allowable there?
I'll have to look at that and
I
see.
mean, that would be, to me, the only way it would be able to move forward. And that would be the sacrifice right there, rather than some of the things, like if it's an easement, there's only two houses instead of whatever it is. So then we got a little bit to look at, but for it to be feasible in my mind, that we would need to change those two lots right there. It's just gonna cost you just a little bit more road frontage, but it'll allow the rest of the project to move forward as something else other than RSA.
Change which two lots?
Might be a whole bunch of lots.
How many lots is it? Well,
It's all of these on both sides. It's most of them, if you're looking at changing the zoning. Because
no, they're all, basically everything but the frontage is gonna be, you say RS15?
Well, we're at 12,000 square foot.
Okay.
On all of them, so that's.
Minimum 10, RS10.
Okay, yes, sir.
So can you make those, the road frontage one's RS10?
Those first two there, lot 1 and lot 2?
If that's where it comes in at, yeah.
I think so.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Major.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but we could do an RS15 or RS20, whichever one would, in other words, there's a way to accommodate exactly what he's proposing with the number of lots and how they're laid out. You could do it with a PUD, right?
No, because you don't have the common ground. You don't have the green space for PUD.
Yeah, I mean, a PUD would be an option, but, I mean, we would need to assess all the,
All that consideration.
yeah, all the considerations for a PUD, just like we did earlier tonight for the previous property.
Well, what about RM8?
That's multifamily.
I know, but it does allow
It
single.
does allow single-family dwellings. Been through all that.
Yeah, I mean, RM8, any property owner's free to request a rezoning to any classification, then we just have to decide if it meets or if it's in line with your zoning ordinance or not. Obviously, without studying it more in depth, I can't say yay or nay exclusively on the RM8, but I mean, that would be an option to explore.
What's our land use map say?
Well,
Medium density? So that, if you're going by the land use map, that eliminates RM8.
Well, it does for that. It does for multifamily, but his density could be, I think, how many units per, 37, well, he doesn't really have 37 lots.
It's 35.
You have 35
Yes, sir.
lots, 35 lots on 15?
Let's see, just 2.2? 2.2, 2.3.
Right, so he's at 2.2. So, 2.2 is RS 20, right? Will, is that right?
That's R20.
That's correct, R20.
R20. So I mean, that with, as far as the density goes, I'm not saying anything about the open space, but that with a PUD will allow him to basically do what he's laid out here. I mean, still get this 35 lots, as I see it.
My math don't equal his somehow. But I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
I mean, I guess the question is, do you want, well, I mean, when we're talking about density, this is comparable to the density of other developments along Cox Pike or in this area. So I mean, that's all I'm saying.
It's probably the same thing as it is when you go up Lake Road, go across Cox Pike.
Right, you've
there.
got
It's same thing, isn't it?
Western Woods with
Yeah, that
RSA.
is City Center way right there.
Yeah, but that's city center and with Western Woods.
and you're
That's
saying
for higher
Western
density.
Roads is RS8? Or
Yes.
is it, I thought it was 15. I thought we discussed that.
Not Western Woods. We looked at that, didn't we?
I thought it was mentioned, but I don't know.
In the other case it was.
Yeah, that was a no.
Okay, so it's, right now zoned RS40. And is that what the overlay
It can go
says?
down-
And you're looking at RS20 as a
it can go-
possibility?
I believe it doesn't have to be 40, it can go down to, what is it, Will?
15.
15? It can go
The
down to
medium,
15.
the medium density could go down to RS 15, yes.
Okay.
As far as the land use, it's.
So
this is-
anything
it's
above
medium
A.
density. It's
Yeah.
medium density, so it complies with the land use map.
Overlay.
The overlay is, it's not part of the city center
Once it goes
overlay.
above 8, it comes out of that. Once it goes above 8,
Yeah, RS15 to
up to
40.
RS15, that does not apply, but being an overlay.
You're talking about a PUD.
You're talking about a PUD though, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm just looking at the density. Only as far as the land use map goes, that's all I'm looking at.
Well, I kind of like the concept of sticking with our overlay, our land use. And if we do have a problem with it, maybe we should revisit it and make sure we have it zoned, like we want it.
Well, the question would probably be, for tonight's purposes, we can't do we want to or not want to do it as an RS8? And to me, in my opinion, the answer would be no because of the overlay. And the other question that's going to need to be answered when you do come back, and I hope you do come back, is the question about the right-of-ways
and who owns that road right there.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And that's gonna be important with you, and an option for you to be, to help, that is what you're gonna have to give up on the road frontage to make everything else fit. So that's something you can work with Mr. Umbro before you come back, I think.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct, Mr. Umbro?
Yes.
So I would move to,
And I really like this plan. I hope that, y'all can get together and figure out something to help make it work.
Okay.
Because I think it's a good plan for this area.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at. I mean,
Yeah.
right there by the school, I think it just
Right, there's gotta be,
fits
there's
in.
gotta be a way to work through this and make it work so that it can happen.
Well, and the houses I'm trying to put in there fit with the school being there. The families, being able to have access to the school that
would be
close.
great.
It's perfect, that's the
Yeah,
reason.
yeah, I mean, they're gonna sell great, but also it's gonna help, people that need this size house that can afford that much in Williamson County, And one question, I mean, if you'll bear with me, Will, what is the smallest, is it RS 15 that I can go down to without being in a PUD, in a PUD?
No, RS-15 requires a PUD also.
Okay,
The smallest without a PUD would be R20.
Okay.
Or RM8 doesn't require a PUD, but it has its own
Requirements.
issues of, if you blanket rezone to RM8,
There's an RM12.
there's, that would, an allowed use would be multifamily housing, so that would be something you'd have to address. But R20 for single-family zonings would not require a PUD.
And what's the lot size on that?
Half acre.
20,000 feet.
20,000 square feet, or
Half
roughly half
acre.
an acre.
So that would change the whole.
Whole thing.
Yep.
So if I can, with the understanding that what we're talking about now need to come back, my
Yes, sir.
motion going to be to disapprove the request for rezoning.
Second.
Okay, I have first and a second, all in favor?
I got one more thing for discussion, just really for his info, so when he hopefully does come back. Now, it requires a PUD, but we can grant variances on PUD requirements, correct?
Yes. When a PUD comes before you, that's, in essence, a PUD allows for negotiations to take place on give and take on setbacks, lot sizes, road configuration,
Green space.
open space, that sort of thing. So that's, yes, you kind of look at it in two aspects. One is how much density, how many lots in this specific parcel are we comfortable with? And that sets the underlying density zone. And then once you get that set, then you can manipulate or maneuver around the lot sizes or their configuration or the setbacks or anything along those lines, so.
well, I could get down to 8,000 square foot lots if we did a PUD and just kind of shift them one way or the other and get some open space in there, if I shift the lots front, towards the school or away from the school or whatever, and then, put some open space in there, so
Well, that's something you can work on with him when you
Okay.
bring it back.
all right, understood, yes, sir. Thank you.
I think we're,
Just so don't get caught in the same position that we did with Mr. Smythe. What I understood, and if I'm this gentleman, I walk away from here saying, all right, I can manipulate to an RS8. They've kind of given me that blessing, so to speak, even though it's outside town center. And then if he comes back with RS8, and then we decide that, well, wait a minute, we don't want to allow it outside. We're kind of back in this spinning wheel thing, so.
that's why I wanted clarification, because
PUD.
I'm gonna try to interpret what I think just for your sake. I think we're looking for R15 or RS15, because that fits our land use map. Somebody correct me if I'm steering him in the wrong direction. With keeping the lot sizes as close to possible as 15,000 feet.
Okay.
And I'll make a disclaimer. just because he said that doesn't mean if it comes back. But from the discussion.
Well, I just don't
think
want
you-
to have the same thing we had
I know.
an
I
hour
know, that's
ago.
why I'm saying a disclaimer. I agree, but.
I want to get him headed in the right direction so he don't waste 30 or 60 days of his time.
Yeah.
Or he don't come back and we have the same conversation in 30 days from now.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think so much of it is, to me, is doing the overlay, following through with it, and maybe that's something, like I said, if we want to readdress it as a board, we can, but I think for the most part, it's a slippery slope of, once you do it, and then what do we want our town to look like, and how do we want to develop, so. Thank you, though. I do hope to see you back.
All right, thank you.
And I wouldn't take this as a negative. I think this
No,
can be
not at
worked
all.
out. Because
No,
I think it's a
absolutely.
really good plan for this area, so
No, I think I understand the issues to a point, and I'll get with Mr. Umber, and we'll kind of iron out what we can and come back around. Sure.
thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
All right, need a vote?
Okay. Right, right. I got that. Okay, I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Let me ask for clarification.
Denial.
Denied, okay.
We
Does this
denied it.
case go forward to the BOC with a negative recommendation?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
Well, I
no,
mean,
I
it's-
think we
it's
just
up-
denied it, period.
Huh?
What?
That would be his choice.
I understand. Well, of course, it's anybody's choice, but, you see what I'm saying?
He said he was gonna come back, so.
Okay, so he's gonna come back.
Yeah,
All right,
I don't
well,
think.
it won't
I don't-
automatically
Yeah, I
go.
don't think this should go to the BOC.
Okay.
I think
All right,
he
then,
should.
as far as him coming back, did you just tell him that you would consider an RS-15 zoning?
No, that wasn't the motion.
Well,
The motion that we were going to decline the request for the 8.
yeah, no, but after that, I mean, what? Okay, so did you not give him something?
Well, I think what you want is a clarification of what y'all need to talk about to
Yeah,
make it work,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
agree with that. So,
Well, I thought I did that, but
Yeah.
So RS-15,
Require a PUD though?
that's what you're
Yes.
saying you consider?
but you were
RS-15?
saying a PUD we could grant a variance and not, right, and not have a PUD.
we can grant a
Yeah,
variance
you
on
wouldn't need
anything
it.
if we choose. But
I mean,
I think with our land use map, this showing medium density, if we're going to stick to our land use map and our city center overlay district, then RS-15 would be the smallest that we would allow in a medium density area. The smallest lot size, or the smallest zoning, if you want to classify it that way.
Just make it simple. The vote is to reject the request for rezoning to an RS-8.
It is, but we don't want Mr. Humber and him to get together and discuss something that,
That's something that they're going to have the option to do and come back with us.
Well, and I think maybe what we're doing is getting in a bad habit of, anybody can bring and present to the board and we can make a variance. But I think you, as city staff, need to be very clear that that's not what our land uses is. So when these people come, they realize that they're really asking for a variance or the PUD to be changed or whatever, and that can go either way. We can't guarantee. And if you're looking for a guarantee of what the RS, if the RS-15 is the way we would want to go, the only way you're going to know is to go for a vote, and we can't. It's not really on the agenda. So all he can do and all you can do is take our comments and make the best educated guess you could. I think enough information was given in discussion what would be considered or what our priorities would be. But we're all different, so we're all going to vote, different. So just because, not to get in the habit of just because I say a comment like I'm more favorable to RS-15, doesn't mean that I'm going to vote, sorry that you're having to be here for this
No, I
discussion,
understand.
that I'm going to vote for RS-15. It just gives you an ideal of what I find acceptable.
Use
And
the
other
use the land
people.
use map as my guide, more or
Yes,
less.
Yes,
and
thank
that would be a good reference point.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
thank you.
I think we did.
We did.
We brought it back.
He was asleep.
I think we're done. Am I on 8.2? Gosh. Okay, 8.2, discuss and/or take action on annexation request for properties located on Horn Tavern Road, map 22, parcel 64 and 65, 9 acres, Priscilla Lampley, owner.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Discussion?
We just crossed this bridge. The same zoning.
This is the annexation first, right?
Yes, but it's asking.
Okay, so say that again,
Now,
Mr. Mangrum.
this is annexation here, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this
The
isn't,
next one.
Yeah,
this isn't a
okay.
zoning one. This is just
I was
annex.
a step ahead of
Annex
myself.
in.
All you gonna do, all I want to do is come in to see us.
Sorry.
Okay, so I have a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Man, you're getting.
Motion's granted. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I've got a question. It doesn't matter if the votes or anything, but this says it's contiguous to the city. Shows 2 lots. Where are they contiguous to the city? Anybody? What do they touch that's already in the city? Is it these 2?
Yes,
Okay.
that's Horn Tavern. Those two are already in.
Okay.
This is the property they're asking to be.
I have my question answered. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Now, 8.3 is discuss and/or take action on rezoning application for properties located on Horn Tavern Road, map 22, parcel 63, 64, 65, 66, 15 acres, from RS40 to RS8, Priscilla Lampley, owner.
Move to approve for discussion.
Oh, just have a question. And these are zoning, the property owners have, okay, I'll second for discussion, but the property owners don't have to be present. We didn't even ask. I see you.
They can be here or at their agent,
Right, their representative.
someone
Okay.
representing them.
Okay.
We still in discussion.
Yeah.
If it doesn't meet, it's the same requirement. If it's not within the overlay, we can't approve it for the RSA. So my motion would be, well, we just will not approve it. Go ahead.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Okay.
I mean, we're right back where we were.
Yeah, but it's
Without
so,
any discussion or worrying about what we just got through saying, we can just disallow it.
yeah. But I just wanted to make sure it's RS8 and what's
An overlay.
yeah. But what's beside it, are those RS8, the subdivision that you can see on the,
No.
what is that?
I think Brandyburg, is it, or Brandenburg?
Brandenburg's right next door.
It's R15, RS15? I think Horn Tavern Court's the same, or, I think they're both 15.
Okay.
Though Hidden Lake Drive looks higher density.
Just step over to the mic so everybody can hear you. I'm sorry.
Sure.
That's okay.
There's also 7260 Horn Tavern Road, not just Horn Tavern Court, because that's past my house. I'm in between this lot and Horn Tavern Court, so I was curious. Excuse me.
Yeah. So we're basically looking at the same thing, even though the ones around it are RS15 and he's wanting a
That's
RS8.
what, yeah, the 15 fits in and the medium-density land use map.
Okay.
This
I
does not-
second your motion, Denali.
I have one question.
Yeah.
What, we talked about, or you talked about during the last session, a variance. Would that be something that could be discussed at this point in terms of variance for RS8?
No, I
No?
don't think so. It's not on the agenda for a variance.
No, you would have to bring back the zoning you want, and then the variance would be discussed at that point. Because this is just straight up, you're asking for an RS8, and what we're saying is, we're not allowing that outside the city center overlay.
By the way, this is a Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah, I know, and
Right.
it's a great cause, and, you know, we're not questioning that. I think it comes to, we're setting a standard that we want
Right.
for our community as far as following the overlay, and if we're mostly in agreeance as a board that that's something that we're requesting, I mean, anybody has the right to, you know, ask for a variance and come back or whatever, but I think that we've probably made it clear tonight that we want to follow our land use map, so.
Okay, so the motion is to deny?
That's correct.
And a
And I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, we've already heard 8.4, so we're going to go to 8.5.
This is a request
Basically,
from the zoning.
right, I was going to say 8.5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are from our codes review. So, Mr. Humber, do you want to just take those? We can discuss them, we can discuss each one of them at a time, but,
Well, we've had, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, these have been referred back to us from the board of commissioners, right?
The ordinances are, the statute says that there's two ways you can do the ordinance part, but if it relates to zoning, it must come before the planning commission. The planning commission can either recommend approval, they can deny, recommend not approving, or they can send it up without any recommendation at all. But because of the time, the way it goes, sometimes they come here first. There's no requirement as to when that ordinance comes here. It can come between first and second reading. It can come before first reading. Obviously, it can't come after second reading. But the way this one worked out, some of them, the board approved on first reading and then referred it to the planning commission because it would hit better and be more time conserving if the board heard it, because that's when it got prepared. Then the planning commission did their recommendation or non-recommendation, sends it back to the board for second reading and public hearing. The ones that are the planning commission that has the PC resolution, they only come here. You're the final say on those. Once they're passed, they become effective once they're passed. The ordinances, you make a recommendation, and if they're passed, if they've already been passed on the first reading, then you do the second reading and public hearing. If you have them before the first reading, then you have to have two readings and a public hearing. The ones tonight are mostly cosmetic.
I'll keep that one.
okay.
8.5, that changes the language in our code, where it changes City of Mount Juliet to City of Fairview. That's all that one does.
We need to move on individually.
Yeah.
Do we need,
Yeah.
so we'll just do a first and a second and a vote? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I did like Mount Juliet being in there.
Okay, 8.6 concerns the maintenance of property. We are saying that we reduce that we're repealing some of the maintenance of improvements that was in the design review manual, and we've cut it down to what we are allowed to do under Title 13 of the Fairview Municipal Code, which is basically a nuisance law, saying that basically what we will enforce are the conditions on a property that constitute a nuisance or a health or safety problem. If that makes sense.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 8.8,
8.7,
sorry, 8.7.
8.7, we've taken, amended, let me see.
You basically took out the stuff that you couldn't enforce anyway, Frank, on the, like the.
Yeah, we
leave
took
the
out stuff that
fences,
couldn't be
leave the old
enforced, that's
trees.
right. In the design review manual.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second.
Okay, on 8.7, what's the, that's the one we're on, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so what's the tree bank variance request, retention? So those are all things that were listed in the municipal planning?
It was
Just
ba-
explain this again, I don't.
Yeah, it was the stuff like, we want to leave an old structure regardless of no consideration for what it was. It might be
Okay.
falling down.
A wall
So we
or
took that out and
whatever.
just said,
Okay.
retain some things that we wanted to keep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 8.8.
All right, 8.8. This simply says that the present wording in the design review manual says the planning director may waive any of the above submission requirements. It changes it to the planning commission may waive any of the above submission requirements.
Move to approve. Take a second.
I have a first and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? 8.9.
8.9 is the convenience market. We changed the requirement from, we're saying that their canopy supports still have to be brick and stone, but they don't have to extend through the roof line.
Because I think the wording was through the roof line.
It was.
That's what we changed.
Yes.
Yes.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Number 9, reports for discussion and information. Mr. Humber?
I don't have anything further tonight, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Hall? I know, I was kind of going in order. Hey, I can do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you, ma'am. Tim, I believe you brought up something a minute ago that the RS-15 was medium density, and yet y'all turned down Mr. Smythe when his property qualifies for medium density.
I think that's because of the lot size. We don't have to, that's a variance apparently, or,
So he would have had to have asked for a variance? Okay.
well, he didn't have to ask for one because he sent his plat, if I read it, if I understand it correctly, and if we approve the plat, then that's more or less granting him a variance.
Yeah. Okay, I was just kind of confused on that. I know RS-20 is what y'all wanted, but, he was actually, at one meeting that Mr. Beata actually stated that he qualified for medium density, and he was satisfied himself that night with RS-15. So
But
the man was kind of misled, in my opinion.
I don't think he was misled, but it's like I told that guy a minute ago, in my opinion, if you do RS 15 zoning, the lots need to be as close as possible to 15,000 feet. And if that's the case, if you look at Smythe's deal, he could fit 3 of his lots in a 15,000 foot lot.
Yeah, but didn't the overall density of the size of the property qualify him for that?
That'd be up to this board.
That's
And
what I'm saying.
to me, personally, no. Because that's just like approving 5,000 foot lots anywhere in the city. That's like, I made the point, it's like approving RS 5. Because that's really, and I know to get common ground and some of these other things, you may have to give a little concession. But giving 66% concession, to where instead of getting 1 lot in 15,000 foot, you get 3, and then leave the rest open, in my mind, that's where and I didn't vote on that item, but that would be my hinge point. That would be an issue with me, and I know he was, 2.9 or whatever per acre. Yeah, he may have that if you take the overall acreage, but when he's got 7 acres or 8 acres of either green space or drip zone, then he's really, he's nowhere near what I think Mr. Beata's intention was that night and where mine and his discussion was intended in my mind.
Well, I was just curious primarily because of the medium density that as far as our land use, it does comply with that, so.
Yeah, the 15 does. That's where we've been going, but 5,000 don't.
All right, I was asked to report back on 2 pieces of property that I went and investigated on. One was on the retention or detention pond at Western Woods. I have got permission to get on the Spicer property to get when the weather dries up enough that we can get over and clear that out where the drainage will go a little smoother. The problem is when you get on the other side of the property, which is private property, we don't have any rights to be over there. But from what I've heard back from Todd, that Marlon Cunningham is willing to get over there as long as Mr. Spicer knows when we're going to do it, and he's going to clear it out and seed and straw it back to where the detention pond won't back up and cause, I think Mr. Tucker had stated that it would cause a lot of mosquitoes and stuff from the surrounding residents there, and that was his suggestion there, and I have got permission from Mr. Spicer to go on that property at the proper time of dry weather. The other issue was Ms. Wade's property. I did not go on her property. I did access it from a neighbor's yard. From what I gathered, that there has been a swimming pool added in that property and possibly changed the elevation. But I could see what needs to be done, and I believe that if the drainage swell was lowered in one end of the property, that it would access the drainage that is already in the back of the property there. So that's my look at those 2 pieces of property. Any other questions on that?
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Is that all? Okay. Mr. Owen?
I'll be quick. I've spoken a lot tonight. Just a reminder, I take my job as to bring to you what I think is, or what I even don't think is the appropriate information for you to make informed decisions. So a lot of times it's easy for an applicant or others watching to say something along the lines of, well, if he hadn't brought that up, then we would have been all right. And so staff gets viewed as obstructions, so to speak. But I can tell you, I generally try to stay away from support or not supporting a specific item, and really try to steer you to, here's what's in your code, and then you can make the informed decision, because obviously none of us here have a vote on anything moving forward. So I hope that's what you find useful with your staff, and because that's how I view my job and what I view my primary responsibility to be. So long meeting, good job hanging in there, and I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Cantrell?
I have nothing further, Madam Chairman.
Oh, wow. Mr. Dowdy?
Two quick things. I do want to thank you guys for the support and the information you do provide for us, because it does help us do our jobs and make intelligent decisions. So thank you all very much for what you do offer to us. Other thing would be a suggestion just for us to think about, and it has to do with our 4 hours of continuing education that we're required to get. I'd like to suggest that we consider collectively trying to assemble something, or coordinating or scheduling something where we could do this as a group and just get it knocked out, rather than everybody just kind of shotgunning their own, hoping to get it done. Does this qualify? Does this not qualify? It seems to me it would be easier for us to identify what really qualifies, and then see if we can't schedule, maybe we all can't be there, but maybe 90% of us can, and get that knocked out, and just do it annually and short circuit some of this.
Just a suggestion, 3 or 4 years ago, we had someone from the state come down, and we, as a group, took a tour and brought out certain suggestions and things from the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
And it qualified as a training session. Is that pretty close to being right? So just to suggest something, that would be great. I mean, the Boys and Girls Club actually drove us around in their van, it'll hold 20 people, so it's very informative. So that, just a suggestion, something we might could do on a Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon or something like that. If that's what you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, I'm open to whatever that is. I just think it would be the most time-efficient thing for us to do as a group and for the city to just, hey, let's plan this, let's identify it, plan it, do it, and then most of us, if not all, could probably make it happen.
It is a
And then it's,
requirement.
and then, I mean, we're obligated to do it, we should do it. But, and I'm just trying to streamline that process for us, or get us to thinking about that. That's all I've got.
Mayor Carroll?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Mangrum?
Just one question. We had a workshop scheduled before this meeting. Are we going to reschedule that to the next meeting?
Let me do some adjusting on the schedule. It's kind of got messed up, and I do apologize for canceling it, but at the time, our budget process is of utmost importance, so I will get out an email to y'all on the possibly scheduling it for the next planning commission.
And can we add to that workshop possibly putting our heads together and discussing the RS-15 and the PUDs and the land use?
That was,
I think that's a good
that was
idea.
exactly my thought. I was
We need to
going,
discuss this and
Yes,
try to make sure where we're going and we steer people in the right direction, including applicants and staff, so we can try to streamline this process opposed to dragging this on for 60 or 90 days.
that's what my thought process was going to be, is to put that in the workshop. And my other process, I'll go to another workshop later on.
Well, and I know it's not appropriate, we're just responding to your, I think it's going to be crucial, because as we have these people coming in front of us, we got so much development on the table, we don't want to waste their time. But I think if we have that workshop, as you're suggesting, it would give us the opportunity to make sure we really understood and be on the same page, so.
That's all.
Vice Mayor Sutton?
Just a couple of things. I appreciate everybody hanging in here tonight. I know some of us started at 5 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock, so thank you. And sorry to keep some of the people waiting for a little while, but this is progress that we're making here with the help of everybody's input going into it. And just as a side note, I want to thank a couple of people here. Commissioner Mangrum has helped with the Boys and Girls Club on 2 or 3 different occasions with us. And Mr. Dowdy is responsible for us getting the sign. I'm on the board for the Boys and Girls Club, for getting the sign that's working now in front of the Boys and Girls Club completed. He donated his services and had his people come out there and run the wiring and hook it up and make sure it's all legal and straight. And I just want to thank you both and Mr. Dowdy for your, I know I hounded you to death, but thank you a lot. I appreciate it. And he did it for no cost. Let me just put it like that, so.
Everybody called.
Nothing further?
Oh, okay.
I have one more thing.
Sure.
And I don't have the paperwork with me, I promise them, but I would have it. Just to remind everybody that we have the Taste of Fairview coming up. It's gonna be in the parking lot, the old Food Line parking lot. And it's gonna be, somebody give me a date.
Tuesday?
The 19th.
Yeah, the 19th.
Tuesday the 19th from around 6 o'clock until 7 or so. The tickets are $25 per person, $75 per family, with children being under 18. And the main thing about it is all the proceeds go to the Meals on Wheels. So it's for a great cause. Come on out. There's plenty of vendors there. It was great last year. I think we sold about 100 tickets. We're looking for about 150 this year. So please come on out. Some great food from every restaurant around here and some other vendors that's going on with it too. So make plans on it and help support Meals on Wheels. Thank you very much.
And you said Food Line parking lot, right? Food Line.
The old Food Line parking lot.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
By
Food Line.
McDonald's.
By McDonald's, yeah.
Okay.
You can get your tickets from Big Dog Realty, the liquor store up here, Ken and M's Liquor Store, First Bank, Johnson. Just if you have any questions, contact the Chamber of Commerce. Number on our website.
That all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make it short. I just want everybody to remember to shop in Fairview, keep your money here. We have a lot of great businesses out there, and I guess my number one goal from here on is just like everybody's kind of saying, to streamline things so that there's a little bit less confusion and people kind of know what direction to go in. You know, some of these, there's some subdivisions I saw tonight that I really liked, and I hope that they come back and, you know, can figure things out. So anyway, we're adjourned.